Good evening. This is the 10th and final reading of The Bliss of the Grave. This reading contains a bit of profanity. Old man Etienne was dead. His son Claude remarried, and his grandson Julien's wife had recently had a baby. Every white within a 50-mile radius was at Magnolia Hill to celebrate the recent birth. Carriages were already lined up along the long circular drive leading up to the big house. Flossie and Pearline had a very busy day ahead of them. It was clear to anyone with eyes in their head that Flossie was terribly ill. In fact, she'd been bleeding from her female place for over a month. She was wise enough in the ways of the body to recognize the familiar smell of rot that starts from the inside and eats its way through you until there's nothing left. Flossie knew that she was dying. Yet Claude's wife, Janine, insisted she sit in a corner like a well-trained dog, just in case she was needed. So Flossie sat in silence while Caroline Drake, one of the guests, offered to buy her after taking a bite of one of the dishes that she prepared. "Well, if you're going to sell Flossie to Caroline, I'll buy Pearline," yet another guest said. "My sincere apologies, ladies, but I would not sell Flossie or her daughter Pearline for all the tea in China," Janine said with a fake look of contrition on her face. Flossie was renowned for her cooking and Pearline equally so for her skills as a seamstress. Janine waited for Flossie to limp over and refill her cup of tea before she continued. "Claude told me Pearline had a twin sister. And unlike Pearline, she was as healthy as an ox when she was born. As you all know, we rent Pearline's services out. I declare every time I think of the money we could have made over the long term off of both of those twin sisters, I get positively sick to my stomach," she said. "Well, whatever became of the other one?" Emmeline Pelly piped in, as if the mother of the slave they were discussing was no more than a piece of furniture in the room. Janine let out an exaggerated sigh. "Well, you know how men are." In a fit of pique, Claude sold her to a wealthy French planter in Natchez. Janine lowered her voice to a whisper. "I don't know how true this is, but I heard the planter she ended up with settled on her own plantation after he put 5 pickaninnies in her." "No, surely you jest," Angelique Thamasi said in an outraged voice. "It's against the law for slaves to own property in Louisiana." Angelique's face was flushed red. She clenched the cloth dinner napkin in her hand so tight her fingernails made half-moon imprints in her palm. "I wish that I was jesting," Janine said solemnly. "But not only did the Frenchman settle her on her own farm after he took himself a white bride, but he freed her. She married one of those red-skinned savages from a nearby tribe and popped out 4 half-Injun, half-Nigger babies as soon as they got married. They made that farm so profitable she was able to buy the freedom of all 5 of the slaves she had with the Frenchman." Flossie held on to the side of the shipper rope to keep from falling. Their conversation continued, but Flossie didn't hear another word. The only sound that filtered through her mind was the echo of a distant voice repeating over and over again, "She is alive. She is alive. All this time, my daughter Manette has been alive and in nearby Natchez. And Lord have mercy on my soul, she's free." Flossie knew what she had to do. Janine Etienne kept Flossie and Pearline up at the big house late until the night. Pearline woke the next morning to find her mother lying in a pool of blood. There would be no work for Flossie today. She was far too sick to even lift her head. Pearline had learned a long time ago to move with economy, limping from place to place to accomplish her tasks. Flossie's huge, feverish eyes were filled with so much love that they fairly lit up that humble cabin. One good eye and one milky eye followed her daughter's every move. Before long, the smell of breakfast foods danced with a sickly sweet scent coming from Flossie's diseased body. Flossie opened her mouth to speak, only to break out in a fit of coughing that threatened to sap the little strength she had left. "Mama, please don't try to speak. Rest yourself," Pearline said anxiously. She'd seen this kind of sickness before. Her heart was breaking because she knew it could only end one way. When Pearline made to get up and retrieve a cup of water to wet her mother's parched lips, Flossie grasped her wrist so tight Pearline actually flinched. "What, Mama? What can I do to ease your discomfort?" she asked. Flossie knew that Pearline had already steeped some poppy seed and laudanum to take away her pain, but the powerful potion would also befuddle her. There would be time enough for that later. Right now, she needed all her senses about her. She fought to bring forth every single word. When the words finally did come, they were in a voice that was hoarse and little above a whisper. "Sit, child," she said. Flossie watched her daughter struggle to sit on the hard, dirt-packed floor. Pearline sat spellbound while she began to tell the story of how Jacob, Pearline, and Manette were born, starting with, "Your daddy was a fine black angel by the name of a June," and ending with, "You got angel blood running in your body through and through, and don't you never, ever forget it." Flossie was not quite done with her revelations. There was a witch on Magnolia Hill named Hannah. Flossie refused to leave her daughter Pearline to the evil slave's mercy. She directed Pearline to lift a loose floorboard under the kitchen table. There was a book and a balled-up, dirty rag beneath that floorboard. Pearline hastened to bring the items to her mother's bedside. "This hair cloth contains the afterbirth I dug out of that nasty slave woman named Hannah when she had her baby. That gal ain't the only one who know how to cast a spell," Flossie said. "This is what I used to bind her. As long as her innards were in this house, she couldn't come in, and she couldn't send nobody else in either. She gonna come looking for this book," Flossie warned, holding the book in her shriveled little hand. "It's evil, Pearline. You can't let her have it. You can't ever let her have it. As soon as Joseph is done digging my grave—" Flossie didn't get to finish what she was about to say because Pearline's big green eyes welled up and she started to cry. Flossie reached for her daughter's hand. "Don't cry, baby. Please don't cry. I'm so tired. It's time for me to go, and I'm ready." Pearline nodded her head for her mother to continue. "As soon as Joseph is done digging my grave," Flossie continued, "I want you to place this here book and this rag at the bottom of it. Make sure you throw enough dirt over it so that nobody but you, the gods, and the good Lord Jesus knows what's there. Get Merle and Jessie to sit wake by my body while you tend to my grave. They'll know what to do if that gal tries anything. Then I want all three of you to sit by my body all night so that yellow heifer can't work no evil on my spirit. Don't leave my body unattended for even a minute. Come morning, Joseph will bury me deep enough to bind that bitch and her evil powers forever," Flossie said. Pearline could no longer keep silent. "Mama, you can't expect me to place your body on top of something so evil," she said. "We talking about eternity, Mama." Flossie was losing her patience. She knew what Hannah was about to do. She needed Pearline to follow her instructions to the letter. That is the only way she could transition and know her daughter would be all right. "You think I don't know what we talking about?" Flossie snapped. "Don't you worry about me, angel girl. Surely, after all I've been through, The gods will expand my resting place and grant me the bliss of the grave and none of the torment, she said in a more gentle voice. Flossie knew she didn't have much time. She used that time to tell Pearline what she knew about her sister. That witch Hannah is about to stir up some mess on Magnolia Hill, she said, and I don't want you to be no part of it. Wait until you know the time is right, child of my heart. Then I want you to walk down River Road and don't you ever look back. Go to your sister. Tell her who she is. Make sure she tells my grandchildren who they are. Each and every one of you carries the blood of an angel, and each and every one of you will be free. Flossie was dead before sunrise. 2 days later, Flossie's dire prediction became reality. When the witch named Hannah joined forces with the Maroons to cause a bloodbath on Magnolia Hill and burn the big house down. And now the wicked witch had Claude and his son Julian in her clutches. Claude was abruptly jolted back to the here and now when someone tossed a bucket of brackish water in his face. He came to sputtering and choking to find he was trussed hand and foot tighter than a Thanksgiving turkey. And he couldn't find one place on his body that wasn't screaming in agony and begging for relief. Claude hissed, I should have known you were involved in this, when the crowd of Maroons separated to allow Hannah to step forward. It was clear she was their leader. His gray eyes were like chips of ice-covered slate when they landed on Hannah. Even tied up and facing the possibility of imminent demise, he unknowingly exuded an air of superiority and remained defiant. Hannah didn't bother to respond to Claude's obvious observation. Of course I'm the leader, you fucking fool. Who else could accomplish all this, she thought, basking in the exhilaration of having the object of her hatred at a distinct disadvantage. You niggas won't get away with this, Julian spat with blood and teeth flying out of his mouth. The militia is on its way even as we speak. And when they get here, they're going to rip the skin off each and every one of your hides and feed what's left to the vultures. Hannah looked at Julian like he was little more than a pesky fly after he finished his impassioned speech. Watch it, boy, she said. That mouth of yours is going to get you in trouble. I'll tell you what, she said judiciously. Since you have so kindly alerted us to the pending arrival of the militia, and since we are obviously running out of time, why don't we speed these proceedings up a bit, shall we? Both Claude and Julian's eyes nearly popped out of their heads from her tone and her diction. During all the years they'd known Hannah, she'd always spoken what the whites referred to as nigger speak. As if she could read their minds, Hannah said, surprised I can master the king's English, Claude? I guess you would be. It was far easier to act as ignorant as you are in order to keep from getting whooped or worse. My name is Maywish Shumeya bin Said El Mugabe. Now you say it. She whispered something to one of the Maroons when her request was met with stubborn, tight-lipped silence. The Maroon raised a large, sharp blade and hacked off one of Julian's fingers. The veins in Julian's thick neck bulged. He bellowed the word shit at the top of his lungs. Claude screamed as if it had been him who had been cut and not his son. Now, Hannah said in a patient tone of voice one would use with a rather slow-witted child, I'm going to ask you one more time, Claude. Say my motherfucking name. Repeat after me. Maywish Shumela bin Said El Mugabe, she commanded. Father, just say it, Julian begged as blood poured out of the place his severed digit had once been. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, Father, just say it. Please, just say it. Claude's voice was trembling with rage when he repeated Hannah's mantra. Your name is not Hannah. It is Maywish Shumela bin Saeed al Mugabe. The hate pouring out of Claude's eyes were as solid as a brick wall and, under the circumstances, just as impotent. Now, was that so hard? Hannah asked with a satisfied smile on her face. All she got was a hate-filled glare in return. Next, she turned her attention back to Julian. I see you think your father's capitulation has no significance, Julian. I told you your mouth was going to get you in trouble now, didn't I? She whispered yet another order in the ear of that brooding maroon who had chopped Julian's finger off. Julian struggled in vain when the maroon reached his large hand inside the opening of his trousers. There was ringing in his ear and the sound of his father begging. No, please, God, no, not that, please. Julian was staked to the ground and couldn't see what the maroon intended to do from the position that he was in. However, Claude could. His father kept screaming, God, oh, God, help me. God, help me. No. But God wasn't present on Magnolia Hill. It seemed like God fled right along with all the demons. Julian felt a horrible burning sensation between his thighs. He wasn't aware exactly what had been done to him until the grinning maroon raised his bloody trophy between his thumb and forefinger for all to see. Julian's mouth was wide open in a silent scream when the maroon shoved his thimble-sized manhood down his throat. His body twitched from head to toe while the red stain at the apex of his pants grew larger and larger. Claude's screams soon turned to whimpers. Claude, I suggest you not waste your tears on Julian, Hannah said succinctly. As you can see, he's already dead. Under the circumstances, I think you should be more concerned about your own well-being. Hannah's voice was cold and extremely impersonal. I killed your damn daddy, she said proudly. Yep, that was me. I made sure he suffered before I did it, too. And he wasn't even able to tell anybody. I wish I could bring that cocksucker back to life so that I could kill him all over again, she said. It felt that damn good. And then Hannah drew close to Claude so that she could whisper in his ear. I sliced your wife Janine up into tiny bite-sized pieces. And then I tied your daughter-in-law to a chair and burned that bitch alive. It appears somebody got to the baby before I could. So you see, Claude, she said, spraying spit in his face, I am singularly responsible for decimating your entire family. And now, at long last, Claude, it's your turn. She turned to the maroon, and in a voice that was still business, she said, feed him to the hogs. And she walked away. I am so much more than the great-granddaughter of an African who was brought to this place in the bowels of a stinking slave ship. I am the one who remembers the names of my ancestors, one and all. I speak the names of those I love every day. I speak the names and they live on through me. I pray that I will be so well loved and remembered. The divine in me salutes the divine in you. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. Ashe. Oh.